guys, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur. It's your boy David. I hope you are all having a good day. You guys already know what you need to do. Smash that like button. And if you are new to the channel, welcome, and smash that subscribe button and tell all your Spurs fans how great the Irish Hotspur is. Now, Tottenham have just officially announced the signing of Guglielmo Vicario from Empoli on a 19 million fee plus add-ons on a 5-year contract, and he was on 21k a week on his contract at Empoli. So one would imagine that he's probably double his money signing for Tottenham Hotspur, but it's still significantly less than the 100k that Hugo Lloris is on. Now, there's a lot of divide on this. Is it a good piece of business? Is it a bad piece of business? So all I ask is that you hear me out and let me know your opinions in the comments on what I have to say. Now, look, to start off, to be honest with you, it really doesn't matter what Tottenham do, because the half that think Vicario is a good piece of business, if we paid the 40 million for David Raya, they would say we overpaid if it was ended up going to be David Raya coming in the door. And the half that think Vicario is the cheaper option would then be happy with the 40 million that we end up paying for David Raya if he was to come in the door. So the reality is, it doesn't really matter what Tottenham do. It's still going to be very, very divisive. But let's look how all this unfolded. Now, Tottenham had been interested in signing Brentford goalkeeper David Raya, but were very reluctant to pay the 40 million asking price and make Raya the fourth most expensive goalkeeper in the history of the game. Now, I know a lot of people originally wanted Raya, said pay the price. But the reality is, if you do that, it does have a knock-on effect. When you go to negotiate with other clubs, they'll also end up slapping astronomical fees on our targets. So it's not really an effective manner. And at some stage, you have to stand your ground and show that you will not be taken advantage of. And if you do end up just paying over the odds for the player, where does it stop? So I can understand maybe the club taking a stand on this one. Now, I ask people just to take your mind back to last summer. The last time we just paid whatever the asking fee for was Richarlison. And look how that one ended up turning out. We overpaid and no one ended up being happy about it. So if you're going to overpay, for me, it actually has to be for the very best in that position. And I don't think David Raya is at that level to be paying over the odds, if you want me to be brutally honest. So we ended up turning our attention to Guglielmo Vicario, who's a relative unknown outside of Italy, but has earned rave reviews in Italy for his performances and comes at half the cost of Raya. 20 million cheaper, but equally as good with his feet, which is the main reason why people actually wanted David Raya in here in the first place. Now, I know that many consider this as a cheap option, which from the optics alone, you're actually probably proven correct. However, many have said that they want us to adopt a similar scouting network like Brighton and Brentford that bring in unknown names and end up turning them into household names. So that we end up actually getting more bang for a buck. And it's something that Tottenham used to do very, very well. And it's something that Tottenham, has served Tottenham well over the years. You had Aaron Lennon brought in here. You had Kyle Walker, Danny Rose, Dele Alli. Jan Vertonghen was relatively unknown before we brought him in here. And the list goes on. And it is something that has actually served Tottenham well in the past. And according to reports by Ali Gold, that is actually something that we have done here. That he goes on to say that Paratici had been an admirer along with Chief Scout Leonardo Gabbanini, and that Paratici actually made inquiries about Vicario's availability earlier this year, and that Vicario could be the perfect fit at Tottenham. Now, a little bit about Gabbanini. He is known for combining the C&I test along with data and watching the player in action. So just maybe, Tottenham are starting to get their act together in that department. And also, it is worth mentioning that Inter Milan, it looks like that Onana could be on his way to United. So we've got in there before Inter Milan, because Inter Milan was looking at Vicario to replace Onana. Juventus were also credited with interest, along with Napoli, Man United and Brighton. So just maybe this could end up being a good piece of business, and we got in there before some of our rivals. And if we also end up bringing in Madison and Tapsoba, I can then actually understand why we ended up taking the cheaper option. But I do understand many fans' skepticism and the comparisons to Chiellini because of his relative lack of experience when it does come to the signing of Vicario, and with our history of dud transfers, especially over the last 3 to 4 years. And some will say that Raya, it's not David Raya, it's not a first choice. And I understand all of that completely. However, I do urge that you give Vicario as a player a chance and not take your frustrations about the regime out on Vicario, and that we actually do give him an opportunity. Now, of course, let's get into some of the reasons behind why we needed to sign Vicario. Of course, we needed a new number one after Hugo Lloris had a number of high-profile blunders during the season and also quit on the team at half-time in that 6-1 humiliation against Newcastle United, and has since come out and expressed his desires for a new challenge. Now, it was also clear to see on the pitch that Hugo's a decline in ability and agility. He just didn't have that same spring in his step. And at the time, it clearly come to move on from Hugo, who was given Tottenham 11 years of incredible service. But not only was it Hugo's shot stopping that was being called into question, it was also his ability on the ball and his distribution, which often end up playing Tottenham into trouble anyway, because it was the lack of, let's be honest. So we also then needed someone who is more of a goalkeeper that reflects modern football as well, who was comfortable with the ball at his feet. Also, someone who could come off his line and help sweep up behind that defence, but also command his area from crosses or set pieces. And Hugo was just not that guy. How many times have most of us sat there and said, look at him, he's rooted to the line, he won't come off his line. Why does he not come off his line to close down, to shoot an angle and stuff like that? It was a huge frustration of ours. So I think the big question is now, does Venom Vicario solve the problems that we were having with Hugo Lloris? Now, when you look at someone like Vicario, his distribution is very impressive. He ranks very highly in those metrics. And there's actually not too much discrepancy between Vicario and David Raya in that department. So he does solve an issue for us. And it's something that we were told by Ali Gold as well. That is something he's actually really worked hard on over the last few years to be able to make it somewhere as a number one. So fair play to Vicario for that. That's impressive. Now, he is a keeper that also does come off his line to sweep up any balls that do come in behind. So a bit of a sweeper keeper, if you like. And he also comes off his line and closes down the shooting angle, which is all a huge plus. However, when it comes to commanding his area from crosses and set pieces, he prefers to punch the ball instead of catching it. Now, that makes me nervous because if you just punch it, it can either go wrong, you mispunch it, but ultimately, a lot of the time, it only ends up putting you under further pressure. Whereas if you actually catch the ball, you can go down on it and you can relieve the pressure. So for me, that is something that I'm a bit nervous of. And I know Jack in the scout report said that David Raya is much better at coming for crosses and claiming for crosses than Vicario. So there is a bit of give and take here. Now, the biggest debate around Vicario amongst Spurs fans is actually shot-stopping ability. Now, he actually ranks good in their metrics, but Ray actually does rank higher. And I think that's where maybe the concerns come from Spurs fans. But great Italian keepers like Buffon and Pagliuca, they've all come out and then praised Vicario as a goalkeeper. And also, ex-coach Jose Mourinho did say after Roma played him that he was hard to beat. And it seemed like he was the best goalkeeper in the world. And with Vicario, now, he has had a meteoric rise over the last 2 years. And like I said earlier, Inter Milan, Juventus, Napoli, Man United, Brighton have all been credited with interest in Vicario. So let's wait and see him in action before we actually judge him. I think that's only fair. For those who don't know anything about him, rather than just go as a cheap signing or even pretend saying you love him, this, that, and the other, let's just give the guy a chance to succeed. Let's just wait and see before we throw any judgment out there, and let's see what he's like in the Ange Postecoglou system. Now, one thing I want to talk about that I haven't really heard anyone mention is, make no mistake about this, but this is actually a huge moment for Tottenham Hotspur Football Club to replace a player that's held down a position for 11 years and been club captain for 8 years, but especially the position it's in. If you don't get it right, it can have severe consequences. Let's take a look at Leicester City, for instance. They ended up selling Kasper Schmeichel. Held down the position for a long time, club captain. They let him go, never replaced him properly, despite all the attacking talent they had. It wasn't enough to keep them in the league because they couldn't keep the goals out the other end. Now, Vicario has a big job on his hands to replace Hugo Lloris, and with huge responsibility comes huge pressure, and all eyes will be on this guy from the first game because he is relatively unknown. Not many people outside of Italy actually know too much about this guy. So I do hope that the 26-year-old can stand up to that pressure. It is a gamble from Tottenham Hotspur. I just hope it's a calculated gamble. So guys, That's my thoughts on it. Let me know what your thoughts are underneath in the comment section. Let me know if you're excited about the signing or if you're skeptical. Give us any details or thoughts about the player that we might have actually missed out. And if you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button. Venom, Vicario, aka Elmo, the Resolute Protector. Welcome to Tottenham.